You guys have all heard this story before, and I've probably read it to you before, but Gary read this at Mega Camp, and it's called The Mexican Fisherman. And I've always been fascinated by how people choose to design their lives because some do it with really great intention and they carefully and thoughtfully orchestrate their version of a remarkable life. And other people kind of get on the river and let it take them wherever they want to go. And so one of those two groups of people is what I call an intentional architect, and the other one is an accidental builder. And so that's my question for you today is, are you an intentional architect or an accidental builder? Now, the story of the Mexican fisherman, here's how it goes. An American businessman was standing on the pier of a small coastal Mexican village when a small boat with just one fisherman docked. Inside the small boat were several large yellowfin tuna. The American complimented the Mexican on the quality of his fish. How long did it take you to catch him? Only a little while, the Mexican replied. Why don't you stay out longer and catch more fish? I have enough to supply my family's immediate needs, the Mexican said. But the American then asked, what do you do with the rest of your time? The fisherman said, I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, take a siesta with my wife, Maria, stroll into the village each evening where I sip wine and play guitar with my amigos. I have a full and busy life, senor. The American scoffed, I'm a Harvard MBA and could help you. You should spend more time fishing, and with the proceeds, you could buy a bigger boat. And with the proceeds from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats, and eventually you would have a fleet of fishing boats. Instead of selling your catch to a middleman, you could sell directly to consumers, eventually opening your own can factory. You would control the product processing and distribution. You would need to leave this small coastal village and move to Mexico City, then LA, and eventually New York City, where you will run your expanding enterprise. The Mexican fisherman asked, but senor, how long would this take? To which the American replied, 10 to 15 years. But then what, senor? The American laughed and said, that's the best part. When the time is right, you would announce an IPO and sell your company stock to the public and become very rich. You'd make millions. Millions, senor? Then what? The American said slowly, then you would retire, move to a small coastal fishing village where you could sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take a siesta with your wife, and stroll to the village in the evenings where you could sip wine and play your guitar with your amigos. So the thing about that story is that it highlights that the Mexican fisherman is very much somebody that has been an intentional architect with his life, right? His business supplies just enough for he and his family and for him to go do what it is that he ultimately wants. And the thing that I find interesting are the number of people who are consistently growing just for growth's sake. And so the assumption there is that all growth is good, but we know that isn't true when you look at growth in a body. You know, if you're growing muscle and flexibility and mobility, strength, that type of thing, that's healthy growth. But there's also unhealthy growth, which is cancerous or tumorous growth, right? And so what I would invite everyone here to be doing over the course of the next 7 days, as you hopefully are taking some time off to reflect, is to get clear on what is a remarkable life for me. And over the course of 2022, how much progress do I intend to make on that remarkable life? And the Mexican fisherman is such a great way to put this. Now, remember that if you're going to have a life by design happens at the belief level. And the thing that I've often said, and many of you've heard me say, is that if you're running up against interference, meaning you can't consistently get yourself to take the actions necessary, then there's probably a belief system that's hiding in your programming that you haven't analyzed and examined and ultimately figured out where it came from and if it's serving you or not. So think about that this week, right? Like for those of you who have ever read my all-time favorite book, I say that and now I don't, oh, here it is. This book right here should be one that all of you have, and that this sits on your nightstand or on your coffee table. And on towards the back of the book, there's a process for those of you that have it called the Dickens Process. that I would encourage all of you to dig into this week if you're looking at reflecting using the story of the Mexican fisherman. I'll see if I can find a link on that process and post it to you all in an email or in our Facebook group. But remember the question that we started this with. Are you an intentional architect or are you an accidental builder? And one thing that I've learned recently is that most of us think we need a lot more money than we actually do. Because just like the Mexican fisherman, it doesn't take that much when you stop trying to impress people that you don't even care about buying shit that you don't even need.